This is my patch of sunchokes. I planted 2 tubers, probably smaller than a fist here, and I planted a lot of other places, and things will eat them if you plant them too early, like moles and voles. They will dig them up or dig through them and eat them, and that is a terrible thing. But if they do make it to the growing season, they are now here in the middle of June, 7 feet tall, and so that's pretty successful. I'm not sure how much they've grown in the ground, but you can see at the ground, it looks like even now you could probably root them, judging by those little root nodes that I'd imagine those are. And they are pretty tough, but they are not the toughest thing around, and they will wilt. So they kind of have a water requirement, but I haven't fertilized these at all, and they're doing really great. But this seems to be a perfect spot because I have sunchokes other places that I can show you as well. Here you can see another sunchoke, and it is of the Beaver Creek variety, and planted at a similar time of the year, if not a few months closer to spring than the taller one that we were just looking at. As you can see, it's about a foot or 2 feet tall, and nowhere near as happy in this spot. And this is only moments after the previous video, so you can tell, you know, it's 1 in the afternoon in the middle of June, and it's in the shade. So clearly that is not ideal. But even here in the shade, this ground leaves it dry enough to wilt, and it has not been in the sun yet today. And you can also tell that sunchokes, maybe you can see from here, but sunchokes have pests. They're particularly fond of leaf hoppers. Leaf hoppers get on there, and I assume thump away and attract more leaf hoppers and suck the lifeblood out of the plants. Here you may be able to discern another sunchoke, and this one sat in a pot for several months, and so it's been on the ground a little bit, maybe a month or so. It has not particularly grown, and it is in a very similar situation to the one you were just looking at, in that it is still in the shade in the middle of the day and maybe 16 feet away, growing in the same dirt. So it is just kind of floundering, stalled. However, you'll see it's not dying, and they won't die, and I'll show you a long-term case to prove that they just refuse to die. Here is the continued growth of my original sunchoke planting. I may have put 1 or 2 little tubers here more than a decade ago, and it has always been in the woods in this dirt, which really only grows moss otherwise, as you can see. So it's really a terrible place to grow anything. However, these sunchokes have exponentiated here over the last decade or so, and I pulled probably 50 of them out of this spot over the winter and planted them around. However, that experiment was not very great, because for the most part they don't seem to have made it into a solid growth season, just putting them out into the wilderness, you know, in the field, in the ditch, wherever I can put them. However, these, as I've told you, have grown here slowly over a decade, so possibly the ones that I've put out will continue to produce into the years to come, and I just can't see them yet. But they will not die in the shade and in this terrible clay gravel. So now you know you can really plant them anywhere, so long as you don't have moles and voles. But you should know that these have never produced significant tubers here. They produce a tuber maybe that would fit on a dime when you pull it up in the middle of winter. So you can grow your stock, but you're not going to have a harvest unless you look and find somewhere like you saw the first stand that here is, the middle of June and 8 feet tall. And here you can see a sunchoke I planted at the same time as the first one. You see I grew 8 feet tall, except I planted it in the ground here. You see all this mulch. I dug up the field and prepared the dirt probably in February, and I probably put 12 out here, and some mole or something tunneled through the ground and ate all but one. So it remains here. I found it and put it in this feed bucket where it likes to wilt here in the middle of the field. It gets a full day's sun. There is never any shade where it is. And as you can see, it will wilt, but if I put a gallon of water on it, it will come right back. And it's inside of this little bit of electrical fence, which is on most of the time, just for the deer. And that is a screamer that I guess detected some creature trying to eat something over there. I don't know. But yeah, the deer don't really mess with the fence too much, but they will definitely eat your sunchokes. And I'll show you that too. Here you see another sunchoke that I planted in the field here. And I don't know if you heard that, but that was a deer. And the deer like this place. Despite it being in the middle of a giant electric fence, the deer intentionally come in here and seem to eat the stuff that I would want them to not eat, because they sought out this sunchoke and ate it. So clearly they will eat your sunchokes. So you have to be pretty careful, because they will really, really strip them down. And as you can see, it's not wilted here. It gets a lot of sun, but it is obviously not nearly as happy with the dirt. So the story of, plant your sunchokes in some garbage dirt and don't fertilize them, and they'll produce as much, as many calories as a field of GMO corn, I really question that, because this one is only like 2 feet tall. And even before it got eaten by deer, it was nowhere near to the one, that was in the dirt. And the dirt of the first one, the 8 foot tall one, was like a foot deep composted mulch. So they really do like super organic dirt, and they will prosper in that. But obviously they will not die of anything except for moles. Moles will definitely mess them up. I would recommend moving your sunchokes in the middle of the growing season. And for most plants this seems, counterintuitive, but like I said, the moles, or the voles, because moles may be entirely carnivorous, I don't know, but if you move them in the middle of the growing season, there's no time for a mole to come and eat your tuber under the ground, because that is when they're in the most demand, in the middle of the winter, where things can just like smell this, carbohydrate package inches below the soil, and they're just gonna ravage anything you have left. So once you get it established, if you leave it in the ground and then you pull it up in the middle of winter, you're probably going to find that something has eaten most of it, but then they always come back because the root stock is still there around that tuber. So that's why they always come back, despite having been eaten away at until spring. So in the middle of the growing season, you can just pull one up and put it in a pot, and it is not going to skip a beat. Truthfully. I mean, these are small, as you can see in this pot I did a couple weeks ago, but they did not care. So that is my advice for moving them around. Probably the middle of June, July, maybe even April. Once they get up and going, pull them up, move them around, and then let that root stock get established, and then they'll stay wherever you put them.